What's up YouTube, Ronix with yet another tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to be doing extreme skin cleanup or how to remove blemishes in Photoshop the best way. And after this tutorial I promise and guarantee that you guys are going to be really masters and really good at removing blemishes from almost every kind of image you're going to be coming across. So I want to show you guys the best methods and how to best remove those blemishes from all your images. So this is a part of the skin we want to deal with. I know it really looks complex, but we're going to do our best, or we're going to try to do our best to find the best methods for removing blemishes. So as usual, we start by cleaning up or removing the prominent blemishes. So I'm going to basically create a new layer apart from the background layer by hitting Ctrl or Command J on the keyboard. So I'm going to come and hit Ctrl or Command J just like that. So if at all I want to remove blemishes, I'm going to slightly increase on the brightness of the screen. So if at all you want to remove blemishes from a particular image, you have to look for the best tools that are going to help you remove those blemishes. And for this case, if at all I try to zoom in, you can see we have kind of bigger blemishes. So for the tools, you have to select under the tools, we have these tools right here. We have the spot healing brush tool, the healing brush tool, the patch tool, and lastly the clone stamp tool. So we are going to basically go through all those tools. So right now we're going to click on this on our spot healing brush tool, and I want to show you guys the advantages and disadvantages for using this spot healing brush tool. So if at all we want to eliminate this big blemish, and make sure when you're using this, make sure you can either sample all layers or just leave it the way it is. But if at all you're going to apply it in between your frequency separation, make sure you only sample the current layer. I hope I'm making sense. But since we right now have both layers, these are filled layers, basically this doesn't make any sense at all. So for the spot healing brush tool, if at all I increase or reduce on the size of the spot healing brush tool, so when you're getting this tool to look circular, always make sure you turn off the caps lock key, because when it is turned on, you're going to notice that it's going to turn into this cross-like icon. So always make sure you turn off the caps lock key. So for spotting healing brush tool, I would advise that you guys should use it on the tiniest blemishes in the images. So if at all I want to remove this tiny pimple right here or blemish, I will just I would make the tool slightly bigger than the blemish and just click over it, and Photoshop is going to automatically remove that blemish for us. And I think it really does a pretty nice job for those tiny blemishes. But if at all, for example, the blemish is big like on this area and we have blemishes close or next to it, if at all I just click over this blemish, you're going to notice, if at all I zoom in, you're going to notice that it has, I don't know if you guys are going to notice this kind of patches, it has left some kind of big patch right there. So I wouldn't advise it to be used on a bigger place or bigger spot. So I think I'm going to hit Ctrl or Command Z to do that, to undo that. So I think this spot healing brush tool is better for removing those tiny blemishes. For example, this, because when you remove them, it is going to be like something that is not going to be like noticeable, even if that Photoshop is going to give you that kind of error trying to replace back the skin from a cleaner area. So if at all we're using the healing brush tool, and how the healing brush tool works, you have to always come and select the current layer, or you can, if at all this layer is a blank layer, you have to select current and blur, because we want to sample details from this filled layer. But since we have a filled layer as our new layer, we have to either use current and blur or current layer. So both are going to be working best for us. So the healing brush tool works the same way as the clone stamp tool. So for whichever tool you choose to remove the blemishes, it is going to be working best for you. So how this works, you remember for the spot healing brush tool, we were just clicking and Photoshop was automatically sampling for us to remove the blemish from a particular area. But for the healing brush tool and the clone stamp tool, you have to manually sample from a clean area and replace or paint over the blemish you want to eliminate. And in order to sample from a clean area, you are basically going to hold down the alternate key on the keyboard and look for the area that is close or next to that blemish and click on that area to sample or get a sample from that area, and now come and just place or click over the blemish to get rid of it. So you can see the before and after. We don't have that patch like we had initially when we were using the spot healing brush tool. So I would advise that you use everything manually if at all you have or you want the best results from your blemish removal in Photoshop. So if at all I want to remove this right here, I'm going to hold down the alternate key and click on that clean area and release the alternate key, and now click over the blemish to get rid of it. So you're going to do the same for this right here. Alternate, click on a clean area and just come and paint or click over that blemish to get rid of it. So alternate, you click on a clean area and release the alternate key, and now just come and left click on the blemish to get rid of it. So alternate, click on a clean area, release the alternate, and you also release the button, and now come and simply left click over the blemish. So you have to always make sure that every time you're sampling, it is slightly bigger than the blemish you're going to replace, like we're using for the spot healing brush tool. So the other tool we are going to be learning about is using the patch tool. So I would advise you guys to learn how to use the patch tool. So when you get the patch tool, you have to now simply come and draw. So you have to left click and draw around the blemish just like that. So it is going to show you like these arrows. You can see this tiny black arrow moving towards the right hand side. So if at all I right click, or sorry, if at all I left click over that selection and move it towards a clean area, you're going to see that it's going to replace that area with a clean area that we have moved the blemish towards. So I think that works best for us. And for this area, remember we had used the healing brush tool right here and it was not really perfect. So if at all I select using the patch tool and I move this selection by holding down the left button on the mouse or the touchpad of maybe your laptop rather, and move it to a clean area, you're going to notice that it's going to replace that very area, and that replacement is going to really be nice and smooth. So we want to learn. So if at all you want to do the cleaning up of the skin, you have to always use, or you have to combine these various techniques for removing or cleaning up the skin as the best way. So if at all I come and I have my time, I can just come, draw and move like that. So basically this is how the patch tool is going to be working when you're trying to clean up the blemish. So you don't have to usually follow the arrow they are showing you guys to replace. You can even move it towards the opposite direction. So for this case, it's showing me that I have to move it towards the right hand side, but if at all I move it down, it can, depending on the area you want to replace that particular blemish with, you have to go with that. So don't let Photoshop dedicate or dictate for you. So I want to replace these blemishes, so I'm going to move towards the right hand side and they're going to be replaced. So I'm going to come right here, and since this is a bigger area, I'm just going to move towards the right hand side and just replace those blemishes. So if at all it doesn't make a nicer replacement, you can basically come back and continue drawing and replacing those particular areas. So let's see so far what we have done. You can see the before after. So you can now come and continue replacing various areas of the skin just like that. And if at all you want to use the clone stamp tool, you can as well apply it. So I've been using the patch tool. So right now let me show you guys the clone stamp tool, and always make sure align is selected because this is automatically going to be giving you guys the best results. So when you select align, always make sure you have the current layer. If at all you're using a duplicate of the background or a new field layer, and if at all you don't have, if you at all you have a blank layer, always make sure you have current and blur, because when you have the blank layer right here, it has no information. So you have to sample from the layer itself, yeah, the blank layer itself, that is the current layer, and the layer below it that is containing the information. That's why you have to select current and blur. So for this case, you can either use, if at all you have a field layer, you can either use current and blur or current layer. So whichever you choose is going to be working for you. So like the healing brush tool, hold down the alternate, click on a clean area. So you're basically left clicking on a clean area while holding down the alternate key and clicking over the blemish to replace it or get rid of it. So like I said, you can use these tools in like a combination of these tools to clean up or remove blemishes from so many areas from your the skin of the images you're trying to do the skin retouching onto. So I'm basically holding down the alternate, left clicking on a clean area and clicking over the blemish I want to get rid of basically. So let's see before and after for this very image. So this is the before after. You can see we still have the details in this very image. So let me just do this quick because I want to show you guys how we're going to be perfecting the overall skin on this very image. So like I said, you can use these all the photos for cleaning up the image just like that. So I have been using the clone stamp tool. So right now I have chosen to use my patch tool to clean up the image or the skin even better, just like that. So I'm basically using the patch tool by left clicking and drawing a circle or a selection around the area I want to clean up and just moving that area towards a cleaner side to replace that area that has the blemish. So you have to come and continue cleaning up rather the overall image just like that. So even for these strands of hair, you can do the same. So like we have this strand of hair, you can just come and just draw this tiny selection just like that and move it towards a clean area to get rid of it. And if at all it copies some kind of blemishes from another area, you are basically free to come and do some little more cleaning up just like that. So for this flyover here, I can just move it down and it will be dealt away with. And I have a really bad selection just right there. So you can see we have just basically removed the prominent blemishes from this very image. So you can now zoom in if at all you feel like you still have more blemishes, if at all you want to have the best image out of your overall skin retouching process. So I think we have removed the blemishes from this very image. You can see the before after. So what we are going to do, we are going to be doing a little bit more of cleaning up or blending or evening out the skin tones. You can see we have those tiny patches left onto the skin, and for blending these areas we're going to be using the mixer brush tool to even out the skin of this very image. So I'm basically going to leave this layer, and I'm just going to simply name that layer low, and I'm going to name this, I'm going to basically duplicate by hitting Ctrl Command J, and I'm going to name this high. So the low frequency contains the colors and the skin tones, and the high frequency is going to be containing our textures. So select the low frequency layer and deactivate the high frequency layer, then come to filter and come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So for this first step, we have to always make sure we move this radius up to a point when we are starting to lose out on the details on the skin of the images we are just trying to retouch. So for this case, I'm going to go with around 3.5. So you have to move this radius up to a point when you're starting to lose out on the textures or details in the skin. I'm going to simply hit OK and come to the high frequency layer and now activate it. Then come, since this is a 16-bit image, I'm going to come to image and I come to apply image. So for this case, you're going to come and select the low frequency layer, and for a 16-bit image the blending mode is add, and for an 8-bit image the blending mode is subtract. And in order to see whether your image is 8-bit or 16-bit, you have to make sure you look at these figures right there. So for this case, I have a 16-bit image. I'm going to select add, and scale is 2, offset 0, and I'm going to basically opacity 100%. So I'm going to invert that layer just like that. And when I'm done doing so, make sure your preview is on, and I'm going to hit OK. Change the blending mode from whichever it is to linear light rather, and I will have my skin back the way with its details. So I'm going to put these two in a group by hitting Ctrl Command G. I'm going to come to the high frequency layer, and since I want to create a black and white layer on top of the high frequency layer, I'm going to come and now select black and white, and it's going to be applied on top of the high frequency layer. Come under the red channel and move it towards the left hand side to darken it. So in this case, you're going to be noticing those patches even more that you want to blend into the skin even more. I'm going to close that, and I'm going to select the low frequency layer, come and under the brushes and select the mixer brush tool. So settings, I'm going to be using a clean brush. So we have two options right here. Select the second option because we want Photoshop to automatically clean the brush for us as we're trying to even out the skin. So we don't want to carry a color from one area of the skin to another. That's why we have selected this second option. The wetness, we're going to be using a wetness of 9%, load 75, mix 90, flow 100. I know so many people have different settings for mixer brush tool, so you have to experience and look out for which one works best for you. So since you are going to be blending the tones or the colors in the image, make sure you are on the low frequency layer, and always make sure sample all layers is not checked or selected because you only want to work on the low frequency layer. So you can increase on the size of your mixer brush tool by using the brackets on the keyboard. Those brackets are just right after the P for pen, the P key on the keyboard. And now you can increase on the size by using the right bracket and just simply start evening out or blending the skin tones just like that. And as you're doing the blending, make sure you blend the midtones alone, the highlights and the shadows alone in the image. So I'm going to first of all turn off the black and white to show you guys the progress. And as you're mixing, make sure you are on your low frequency layer, because when you're not on your low frequency layer, you're not going to be achieving these results the way they are. So I'm going to turn off this black and white layer, and I show you guys the progress so far with just a few strokes of a brush. So this was the image before, after, before, after, before and after. So I'm going to continue blending or harmonizing the skin tones. So I'm going to turn this back on. You can see we have highlights just right here. I'm going to blend them. Then some kind of midtones right here, and I'm just going to blend them or even them out just like that. So we have some kind of shadows. Just come and blend them like that. So I'm basically trying to, I should call it marrying or harmonizing these inconsistencies in the skin tones of this very image. Just nice and easy. And as you're blending, like I have said, blend the midtones alone, the shadows alone, and the highlights alone in a particular area of the image you're trying to retouch. So let me turn this off and I see what we have done so far. So this is the image before, after, before, after. We still have the textures. I hope you guys can notice that we still have the textures in this very image. So I'm going to turn this back on. Okay, let me work without it, because I have always had questions or comments about if at all it is a must to use the black and white. I should say it is not a must. You can as well work without it if at all you really trust your site anyway. So just come and even out or blend these tones and just harmonize them just like that. So when you're done using a mixer brush tool, for those that really love or are fans of frequency separation and you don't want to do the micro dodging and burning, you can basically stop right here and you can go in for your micro dodging and burning to even out the skin tones in the image. So I think I'm done evening out the skin tones. You can see the before after, before after. We still have the original skin textures in the image. So basically what I prefer to do after using the mixer brush tool and I don't want to do the micro dodging and burning, I come to the lasso tool and come and make sure I'm on my low frequency layer. Then after doing that, I always come and make that nice selection. So you have to make a selection the way light is falling onto a particular area of the image, just like that. And the feathering I use is around 22 pixels. And after making that selection, so first of all, you have to make sure the feathering is 22 or between 20 and 25. So come and make that nice selection just like that. And only make sure you select the skin area and you keep away from the edges, maybe the hair and facial details. So come to filter and come to blur and come to Gaussian blur. So you have to move this radius up to a point when you're starting to lose out on the skin details of the image. So for this case, we are going to start moving this. So you're basically trying to fine tune the areas we may have missed out when we are using our mixer brush tool. So I think at around 12, I have a nice skin texture. So I want to apply this onto the rest of the image. I'm going to come just like this and make another selection. So simply right click and click on Gaussian Blur, and you can see that we have the details are now popping back into the image. So I'm going to just come right click and come to Gaussian Blur, just like that. Nice and easy, I know, just like that. And you can see right now we have the original skin textures in this image. You can see the before and after, and we have not lost out rather on any single detail. So like I said, some blemishes are really stubborn and they always have to remain when you're going to, after doing your skin retouching. So I would advise that you always come back and revise or revisit your blemish removal and clean up the image even more after retouching or during your frequency separation. So we're going to come to the high frequency layer, and now we're going to get the clone stamp tool. And since we are working on various layers, we have to come and make sure, since the high frequency layer contains the textures, you only have to select current layer because you don't want sample from any other layer. And now we can simply zoom in slightly and clean up. So we want to clean up these blemishes. Hold down the alternate key on the keyboard, sample from a clean area, and click over the blemish to clean it or get rid of it from the image. I hope you can see the progress so far, and it is really nice. So always come and make sure you clean up those blemishes, just like that. I hope I am really making sense and you're learning so much from this very tutorial, because I don't know why some people tend to watch just a few minutes and the audience retention is really high sometimes, but I just hope you're still watching up to this very stage of this tutorial, because this is going to really transform your images as a retoucher. And always make sure that you do the practicing to your images and to perfect your skin retouching techniques in Photoshop. So basically we are removing those blemishes that should have remained when we are trying to remove the blemishes in the first place before doing the skin retouching or evening out the tones of the image. So I think we are almost done. So let me zoom out and I see if at all we have left out any blemishes in this very image. So you can see where we are right now. Just come and clean up the skin just like this. So like I said, skin retouching is really for the patient, and if at all you're not a patient person, you're not going to be able to get the best out of your images. So always make sure you do take your time when you're going to clean up the images. So just come and clean up just like that. So I think I am almost done with this tutorial, because I don't want you to get bored. So I'm basically holding down the alternate key and left clicking on a clean area and releasing both the alternate and the left click button and clicking over the blemish to get rid of it. So I think that is all for this very tutorial. So let me show you guys the before and the after for this video or this tutorial. This is the image before and after. I hope you guys have really learned so much from this tutorial, and I pray that this tutorial is really helpful and impactful in your photography and skin retouching journey. I'm Ronix from Ronix Photography. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in yet more tutorials on this channel. Don't forget to keep practicing and keep creating.